In this video, we're going to take a look at some retro software, specifically TurboVision. I will explain a bit about the library and then we'll create a simple test program that uses that library. TurboVision is a text mode user interface library. Back in the 1990s, Borland produced several software development tools. They were the first to develop an all-in-one integrated development environment, or IDE, where you could edit, compile, and run your code all within a single application. I believe their initial product was Turbo Pascal, and that was later followed by Turbo C and Turbo C++. At some point, their products started including TurboVision, a user interface library. TurboVision includes pop-up windows, menus, dialog boxes, and mouse support. And this is the Turbo C++ IDE. If you're wondering how professional the TurboVision library was, Borland actually used the same library for their IDE. So you're actually looking at the library in action now. We got support for menus and dialog boxes with radio buttons, text boxes, and all the elements you typically see in a more modern Windows program. Modern computers use graphics mode to draw windows and other screen elements. Graphics mode allows software to set any pixel to any color. But back in the 90s, most programs ran in text mode. Text mode divides the screen up into character cells, normally 25 rows of 80 characters. Each cell can be set to a particular character with a particular color. The character is set using an 8-bit integer. That allows for 256 different characters. The original IBM PC used the ANSI character set for these characters. This character set includes upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and punctuation, but it also includes a number of lines and corners which can be used to form boxes and other graphical elements. And this is how text mode applications implemented windowing interfaces back then. Text mode was also much faster than graphics mode, so it worked well for the slower computers of the time. Okay, so here we are back in Turbo C++. I've created a new project and added one empty file to it, test.cpp, and I'm calling my project test. And you can see down here I've added the TurboVision library. On a personal note, I owned Turbo C++ when it came out, along with TurboVision, and there were a lot of manuals. I had discs and manuals. There were multiple substantial manuals just for TurboVision alone, and I always wanted to get into it, but unfortunately I never did. I was still learning C++ at the time, and so I didn't get very far, and then Windows came out, and so I never did it. So I just kind of looked into it to put together this video, and I was kind of curious about what I missed out on. So the first thing we want to do if we want to create an application is we override the TurboVision application object. So I'm going to create a new file. This will be our app. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to include the TurboVision header. But before we do that, we have to define a bunch of definitions for indicating which classes we're going to use. And it's hard to know in advance what classes we'll need, so I'm just going to enter them all now to save time. Okay, and so there we're including the file, and we're telling it which classes we want to have included. In addition, I don't want to do this every time this file is included in case multiple references to this file, so I'm going to wrap it in a Okay, now we can create our class. So we're going to create a class. A convention used in Turbo C++ was to start all class names with a capital T for type. And so I'm just going to follow that here and call our class T test app. And we need to derive from T application. And so the application class, the T application class, is the TurboVision class that does the core functionality. And so in order to customize it and implement it, we use C++ inheritance to implement our own version of it that we can override whatever functionality we want. And so we have a constructor. And that's all we have for right now. And I'm going to save that. And I'm going to save this as app.h. And I'm going to create a new file. And this one will be our class code. So I'm going to need standard lib, and then I'm going to include app.h, and then I'm going to define our constructor. So it's tTestApp, tTestApp. And what we need to do here is call our one of the classes that we inherit is called tprog_init, and we need to pass functions that initialize the status line, the menu bar, and the desktop. So we put a colon, and we call tprog_init, and we pass test. These are static methods, by the way. Init status line. Init menu bar. And init desktop. And then we have an empty body. So these are all methods. These are static methods because we don't have anything initialized yet, and we're only going to have one status bar and one menu bar and one desktop. And I'm not sure if I have everything, but let's try to run that. Okay, so I need to save this file. Actually, I need to do a couple things. So I'll save this one as app.cpp. And then I need to go back to our main file. And I need to create an instance of the class and run it. So I'm going to include app.h, and then I'm going to declare my main function, which is where execution starts for all C and C++ applications. and I'll create an instance of my t-test app, and we'll call it app. And then we'll run it just by saying app.run, and then we'll return 0. Let's see if I have everything there. So I got to go back to the project. So I haven't added the, I have to add both files. So test is added, so I got to add app.cpp. Let's try that. Misspelled this. And the T needs to be capital. And there we have our basic application. We haven't overridden any functionality. We've got a menu bar up at the top with no menu items. We have a status bar at the bottom, and it has one item to exit the application by pressing Control-X, or you can also click this status bar to select that and terminate. And I don't know why I get this, but I don't want to reload it. Okay, so if we look at this, again, as I mentioned before, we're passing these init menu bar, init desktop, init status line, and I'm qualifying them with the name of this class, even though they're not defined in this class, because they're simply referring to things that are inherited from the base class. But we can create our own init status line, so we can create a custom status line. And so let's do that. So if we go back to the header file, let's see if I have that open. Yeah. And we're going to add both a menu bar and a status line. So we'll say static T menu bar. Oops. So it returns a pointer to a T menu bar. Init menu bar T rect and static T status line init status line T rect R. And then we'll go to our implementation class, and we will implement those two methods. And so the first one I'll do is the init menu bar. And then the second one is going to be init status line. Actually, I'll fill the status line out first. So I'm past a rectangle of the screen. So the rectangle, the first Y equals, or rather the last Y equals, whoops, Y plus 1. So that's one line above, oops, sorry, it's minus, and that's one line above the bottom. And then I return a new T status line, And I pass our new rectangle, which I modified for just our one line, and a couple of T status, first status definition, and this has something to do with the help context, which TurboVision supports. And then a couple of T status items. And the first one is going to be that Alt X like we just saw on the screen. And so the way we do this is we do a tilde, and I do Alt X, and then another tilde, and the text within the tilde will be highlighted. And the text after it will just be displayed normally. And there's going to be a hotkey, so it's key KB Alt X, and there's a command already defined for this, and it's CM quit. And then we'll do one more, new TS status item, and it's Alt F3 close. And that Alt F3 is the standard in TurboVision to close the current window. So it's KB Alt F3, and the command is CM close. And I think I have most of that right. And now we'll do something similar for the menu bar. So r.b.y equals r.a.y plus 1. One line below the top. And then I'm going to return a new T menu bar. And there's my modified rectangle. And here we have a T submenu. And this will be our file menu. Give it a keyboard, a hotkey of Alt F. And then within that, we're going to have a new T menu item. And let's put the command new. So it's new. The command is CM new win. Our keyboard is going to be F2. And our help context is just going to be HC no context. And then F2. And CM new win is not defined, and so we need to define that in our header file. So I'll just put it at the top of the class definition, and just const CM new win equals 200. And then I'm going to add a divider in the menu, and that's done with new line. And then I'm going to put another menu item for our exit command. We'll highlight the X. and CM quit KB Alt X and HC no context and Alt X. And let's go ahead and put another menu. And we'll have this be our our window menu. So window W and new T menu item. It's going to be next. CM next. And this command next, and the next one are already defined by TurboVision. So KB F6, HC no context, and F6. And one last one. Oops. New T menu item. And that's going to be zoom, which is the word for maximize. So I'm not sure if I got everything. Let's see if that'll run. No. I didn't put the return value. Value is T menu bar. And T status line. Need the word new there. You also have to give me a little leeway here. This is obviously not the editor that I'm used to, and so I spent a little time becoming familiar with it, but not that familiar. And so now we have a little more detail. We have our menu with our new command, which doesn't do anything, and our window. These are both disabled because there is no window. Those affect the current window. And we have no status bar. So I obviously did something wrong there. So this should be A. This should be B. -1. I think that's right. And now we have our menu and we have our status bar. Also Alt F3, remember that was to close the current window. Since there is no window, it's also grayed out and does nothing. So the next thing we want to do is we want to create a window. So I'm going to create a new file, and we'll call it demo window. So it's a class T demo window, and that's going to derive from T window. and that's only going to have a constructor. So T demo window, take a rectangle, a title, and we need a number for it. And we'll save this file. Save as demo win. And then I need to add that to the project. So, whoops. Project, add item. And then I'll create, actually, that was a mistake. This goes in the header file. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to cut it actually, and then create a new file. And I'm going to save that as demo in H. And then in our implementation class, we'll include the app.h. We'll include demo win.h. And then we'll implement T demo window, the constructor, T demo window. Const T rect R. And we're going to call some of the base constructors. So T window will pass the rectangle and the title and the number. And then there's T window init. And we'll pass our init frame method. So now we'll go back to our application class, and we have to add a code to handle an event. So let me go to the header. And virtual void handle event. And we're going to need another method, void show demo window. And then we'll go to our implementation. And So anybody familiar with Windows knows about sending messages, and this is where we get our message sent. Much like Windows, TurboVision works. It's message-based and works very much like Windows in that respect. So first thing we'll do is we'll pass it to the base class. So T application handle event. Let our base class process. And then we can look and see if it's a command. So if event dot what equals ev command, then we'll process the command. So we'll do a switch statement. We'll switch on event dot message dot command, and we have case cm new win. That's our new window command we added. And then we're going to call our show demo window method, and then break. And I'll just add a default case here. And then we're going to implement our show demo window. So that is void test app show demo window. And we create a rectangle for our window. And then just so our window will not appear at the same place every time, we're going to move it in a sort of random way. 3, 1, 6. And then we'll create an instance of our demo window. And then we do need to pass a window number. And the way we'll do that is I'll create a static int short win number, set it to 0, and then in the implementation I will pass that'll be in app. I'll pass ++ win number. And then we call desktop insert and pass our window. And let me see how much of that I got wrong. So I will need to include my .h. Okay, now we have it as before. Now when I click new, I actually get a window. It doesn't have any content. I can maximize it. I can restore it. I can resize it. I can drag it. And notice the Alt F3 close down here is now enabled, and so is the next and zoom commands here. And I can close it. and I can exit. So now I'd like to draw some content in our little windows that we made, our demo window. And the way TurboVision does this is you don't write directly into the window. Instead, you need a view inside the window. And it's possible to have several views in one window. We're just going to have one here, but we'll need to declare that. So let's create a new file. And again, we'll include app.h and create a class. We'll call it interior. And this is going to inherit from tview. And we're going to have a constructor. And we're going to have a expose draw method. And so I'm going to save that as interior.h. And then I'm going to create a new class, a new file for the implementation. And so that is going to include interior.h. And we'll implement the constructor. And we're going to first pass that down to the tview constructor and pass our bounds, our rectangle. And then our body. So we're going to set our interior to match the size of the window that we're in. So GF. And then we'll include the framed option. And then we're going to implement our draw. And we'll just pass that on to the base class to draw. Now that won't know how to draw our text, but it will clear the background. And so a simple way to do that is just have it clear the background. And then after it's done that, we'll write our string for right, hello world. And let's see if I got that right. Oh, I didn't. So this is interior CPP, or yeah. But I didn't add that yet. So we need to go. First of all, I need to add that file to the project. So I'll go to the project and add item, and we're going to interior. And then I need to go to demo window. And I need to implement that on the when I create the demo window, I need to create the interior too. So trect bounds equals get clip rect. So that's getting the area that we have, our client area. Let's grow -1, -1. Fit inside the window, and then insert new T interior bounds. And we'll need to include interior.h. And this should just be write str. Now if I create a new window, we have our text in there. And I can just hit F2 to create a bunch of windows. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is show a dialog box. So let me clear up some of these windows. And this is going to be in our application. So the first thing we'll do go to our header file, and we're going to add a new command, and we'll call it cm new dialog, and we'll set it to 201. And then we'll need a show dialog. And then we'll go to our implementation. And first of all, we'll add a handler, another event to our handle event method. So that'll be the command new dialog, and then we'll call show dialog. Break. Okay. And then we're going to implement our void test app show dialog. Now, anybody's worked with dialog boxes like in Windows, you usually have a nice dialog box designer. And it wouldn't surprise me if somebody somewhere wrote one for TurboVision, but I haven't seen one. So you actually have to write it just line by line and hard code your coordinates. And so we're just going to do that. I'm going to do that, and the last thing just to show you how a dialog box will look. So create a dialog, new T dialog, create a rectangle, comma 6, comma 60, comma 19, and we'll give it a title, Demo Dialog. And if the dialog was not null, so we'll use a view to create some of our controls, and we'll create a cluster of checkboxes first. So we'll say new T checkboxes. We need a rectangle, 3, 3, comma 18, comma 6, and then our checkbox items. So we say new TS item, H party, new TS. I'm not sure what TS item TS stands for. T set and new TS item. Jarlsberg. And then we can insert that view into the dialog. So we'll say insert view. And then we create a label. So we'll say dialog, insert new T label, T rect 2, 2, 10, 3. And our label will be cheeses. And it will be a label on that view. And then we're going to create a some radio buttons. If you're not familiar with those, a checkbox allows you to check any or all of the checkboxes. A radio button you can only check once, like checking the station on a radio. And so we're going to do the same thing. We'll say view equals new T radio buttons and give it a rectangle. And that's going to be 22, 3, 34, 6. And new TS item. Solid. TS item. Runny. Melted. 0. Okay, and then we're going to do a similar thing that we did before. We'll insert that view into the dialog box, and we'll create a label. And it's going to be 21, 2, 33, 3. And this will be consistency. And our view. The next thing I want to create is an input line, which is just a text box. So I'll say view equals new T input line rect 3, 8, 37, and 9, 128. And insert that into the dialog box. And then again, to create a new label. So dialog, insert T label, T rect, and 2, 7, 24, 8. And this will be our delivery instructions. And then we're going to add a couple of buttons. We'll add an OK and a cancel button. So we'll say dialog insert, new T button. Again, give that a rectangle. That's going to be 15, 10, 2, 5, 12. And default button, that means that when you hit enter, that automatically selects that button. And the cancel, same thing. Insert new T button, T rect, and that's going to be 28, 10, 38, 12. And that's going to be cancel. And CM cancel, and it's a normal button. Then we display the dialog box. Now, because it's a modal dialog box, which means nothing else happens until that closes, it's a little differently. So instead of just showing it, we say desktop exec view. We're going to execute it. We're not going to return until it's all finished. And then, in fact, we can destroy it. And let me see how much of that I got right. Need an extra parenthesis there, and an extra parenthesis there. And another parenthesis there. And we need another parenthesis there. And it ran. And one thing I forgot to do is I need to add a new command for that. So we'll go back up to where we create our menu bar. And that's up here. So we're going to say new T menu item dialog. That gives us a, oh, let me change that a little bit. I want to put a, well, I just want to put another new line, another divider. So I just want to copy this. Like that. All right. Now we have a dialog, and now here's our dialog box. Still moves. Dialog boxes are generally not resizable. We have our checkboxes where we can check any or all, and we have our radio buttons where we can only select one. And I can also use a keyboard, and I can up and down keys, and I can press tab and I can type some instructions. And so that's a basic look at Turbo Vision for Borland, Turbo C++. Um, there's a lot more obviously we can get into, just kind of showing the basics of how it works and what it does, and hope you enjoyed it.